Welcome back. Today I'm going to tell a story, maybe a series of stories actually, all related to three amazing miracles, truly miraculous happenings that occurred in my life related to Babaji, or he's known as Mahavatar Babaji. Um, he is one of the great spiritual beings in the world right now, and I learned about him through Autobiography of a Yogi. He is the head of the lineage associated with the work of Paramahansa Yogananda, who started the Self-Realization Fellowship, and this goes back and back to Babaji, who taught Lahiri Mahashaya the Kriya Yoga to bring it to the world, to bring it out to the world, and eventually that all came out through the work of Paramahansa Yogananda and his bringing yoga to the West, and Kriya Yoga, and all his work that he did with Self-Realization Fellowship. But I wanted to share these three amazing miracles that I experienced related to finally coming around to what I'm telling all of you about, which is that you have to ask. And when I related to my feelings of connection to Mahavatar Babaji, I'd always felt like I had a special ace in my back pocket for emergencies. And unfortunately, possibly for me, because I don't think it has to be quite the way I've kept it, I waited. I probably found Autobiography of a Yogi around when I was 20 years old, and I waited probably nearly till I was 40 before I actually drew one of those aces out of my pocket. And I don't know that I'm limited to three or two, but I've had three amazing miracles, and I've always felt that I had a very special relationship with Mahavatar Babaji, probably going back to another lifetime, because I haven't met him in this lifetime. I've only read about him in the books, but my experience that came up for me, subjective experience that I had when I read the book, told me that there was something very deep there. And so I always felt that I had this, like I said, an ace in my back pocket. And around the time when I was making YouTube videos very prolifically, before around 12 years ago and longer, I was beginning to get very deeply into teaching meditation and life coaching, and I was teaching some manifestation techniques in the meditation classes for manifestation. And I finally got really clear with myself about wanting to live a divine life. I wanted to let go of all of the barriers that I was experiencing, or that I thought I had, to being the divine man that I could be. So I finally realized that was important enough to ask Babaji for some assistance. And so I did. I created my own little ceremony, and I got extremely focused and intense, and I asked for assistance to help me. I asked Babaji to assist me in surrendering to God and to surrendering to the divine, so that I could live a divine life. And I laid myself out on the floor, and I let it all go, and I gave it to Babaji and said, please assist me to let it all go, so that I can live a divine life. And there was an event that I was supposed to be going to the next day, and that was kind of the impetus that inspired me to ask for this assistance. I had coordinated a special event in Portland, and there was a big meditation meeting, and a teacher was coming, one of these Indian guru teachers was coming to Portland, and was going to do a special meditation meeting, and I had set it all up. And so I felt like it was a special event, this thing coming in. I just wanted I realized that I could ask for this assistance, and I really wanted to let go and to live a divine life. So I asked Babaji for this assistance, and the next day at the meditation meeting, the teacher was leading us through it's like a guided meditation. I had been teaching the same meditation in the Portland area, but I'd learned it from this teacher, and I was working with that, so I was familiar with the meditation. And two things happened that evening. I experienced the meditation exactly as I had learned it and experienced it in time, and you go through the different chakras, starting from the base chakra up, and he pronounces a sound that goes in and is like a key to all of the different chakras as you go up. And I also experienced something else, which I'll tell you. So the sounds that went with it were, I guess it was the sacred name of Shiva. So you have Om Namah Shivaya, and the Na was at the base of the spine. The Ma was the next chakra. Shivaya. So it's they were associated to the chakras, and you would go through it that way. So the teacher pronounced the first one. It was Na, and you felt it. And then when he said Ma, I felt the sound rippled across the room, and it hit me in that second chakra. And when that happened, it was like bing, like a tuning fork. Like my body became this amazing tuning fork that was focused right in that second chakra area, and the vibration was tremendous. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't even subtle. So I felt the vibration start in that chakra, and at that moment, I know that I began to have another experience as well, and they weren't really superimposed on top of each other. It was like I had two separate experiences that evening, one in which we went through the meditation, and another in which I was suddenly flying across an ocean of light. And I was holding the hand of the teacher who was guiding us in the meditation, and I was lit up. I was all light. The teacher was light. And we were flying across an ocean of light, and everything, and it was light, it's light. And I was kind of amazed at that, because as I looked at it, I looked at myself, I could see myself getting brighter and brighter, and the same with the teacher. And I looked, and I could see his beard, and I could see his face, and my own features. And I remember wondering, how can I possibly see anything in all of this light? I mean, there's nothing but light, and it just keeps getting brighter and brighter. But it did, I could see, and it did keep getting brighter. And, I know it doesn't make any sense, because how do you get across an infinite ocean of light? But it seemed like we were flying across an infinite ocean, and we come to the other side. And this was Babaji, I believe, Babaji's first miracle in my life. And we come across to the other side, to the Arul, to the light itself. And I can tell you what I experienced, but it's impossible to truly convey. Being with the light, realizing that I am the light, and seeing the teacher and all of us, we were the light, we were all one. And yet, we still were ourselves. The mystery of manifestation, but it made all sense to me there. I don't know how possibly to explain it, except that it was like I had gone and found the secrets of the book of the universe that has everything in it, and was enabled to just turn to the last page and read the whole story, how the story turns out. And this was one of the most tremendous blessings that I've experienced in my life. Was just the experience of that light, the light itself, and realizing and knowing that I was that light, and that we were all one. After that, because it's hard to even say, I can't even say after, before, it happened outside of time, but I experienced it. And I came back. I ended up having breakfast with that teacher the next day, and events started to fall in place for me to go to India. I didn't have the money for it, or I didn't see the way, but everything just fell into place perfectly for this to happen. And I was soon lined up to be heading to India for a special trip. We were going to go to temples, visit temples, get special remedies for clearing up your karma. And so I'm at home, and I'm realizing now that I'm headed to India. And I was getting more clarity with myself. I'd asked to live this divine life. I had the experience that I just shared. And then I got really clear as I was starting to, as I said, when you ask for this, you'll see the limitations that and the beliefs that you'd accepted before might come to this. If they come into conflict with what you've asked for, they may arise for you to let go of them. And I was starting to see how various feelings I had about guilt around sex and around the idea of spiritual life or material life, money, and poverty. All of these things were coming up and being brought to the surface in my consciousness, and I realized that I needed to let go of some of these limiting beliefs that I had. And so I turned once again to Babaji when I realized that I wanted not only to live a divine life and to be the divine man, but I realized then that I wanted to have a relationship with a divine woman. And I was married at the time, and I didn't feel like I had that kind of relationship with my wife. And yet I still wanted it. And I finally got to the place where I allowed myself to ask for it. And I asked for it. I was willing for my wife to be that divine partner. But if she wasn't going to be it, I was willing still to ask for it and to let what would come, to let it go if I needed to. I was ready at that point. I'd gotten clear with myself. And so I asked for assistance at that point because I said that what I asked for was that I wanted to live a divine life, but I wanted to have a divine partner. I want to live with the goddess. I want to have a relationship with the goddess herself in the flesh. And similar to what I was saying before in some other videos, I asked for that, and I didn't say under grace and in a perfect and easy and effortless way. But I have to admit, I did get what I asked for, and I did get what I wanted. And some of that story may have to flow over into some other videos. But what happened is that I asked for that, and then very shortly after that, I end up going to India. I'm on my way to India, get into India, and there's a whole group of us there, and we are going to temples. It's actually, this whole event was centered around the Navaratri festival of the Hindu religion. It's not that none of us were really Hindus. I'm not Hindu, at least not in this life. I was raised Catholic, but we were going to go there to have this special experience, and I've always been open to God as He would manifest in all of the various cultures and religions. To me, it makes sense, and it is all one, and there is no conflict. I don't think of the Hindus as pantheistic because they have so many names for God. They are actually, in my understanding, some of the most spiritually and religiously devout people in this world, and they love God, and they understand that there is one God, and yet they are so religious and so devout that they see God everywhere, and so they have thousands of names for God, and they see God in all of His many, many aspects, as the goddesses and the gods and all of it, but it's all they still understand that behind it all is the one God. So we showed up there in India, and we went to temples, but we were there during Navaratri, which is the 9 nights of the goddess. This is one of the most special Hindu festivals of the year, and there are 9 different nights of the festival, and there's 3 nights for each of the 3 main goddesses, Parvati, Saraswati, and Durga. And there's definitely something to being in the right place at the right time. And if there is a right place and a right time for connecting with the goddess, I would have to say it just might be in India during Navaratri. So when we got there, I believe it was the first 3 nights were for Parvati, and the teacher had given us a special puja to do, where we would chant the mantra with our prayers into flower petals and offer them to the goddess, offer them to Parvati. And we did this, and he said, do this, chant the mantra, say your prayers into the petals, offer them to the goddess, keep the petals, and then in the morning, take the petals from your puja to the ocean. We were near the ocean when we were doing this. Go to the ocean just before sunrise, and just as the sun begins to rise, offer the petals and your prayers to the goddess, offering them to the waves. It was a really beautiful ceremony and puja. So I did the ritual. We prayed all night, late into the night. Had big bowl of flower petals. The next morning I get up and I go down to the ocean, and it was such a peaceful, lovely morning. I remember the ocean was very calm. It was almost clear, like just unrippled. It was very soft waves coming in, and the ocean looked very clear and smooth, and there wasn't a cloud in the sky. And I was there at that twilight moment just before the dawn. And I was waiting till we got close to the sunrise, just as I was told. And as I looked out across the ocean, and I could almost sense the light was just about to start, so I was about to start my ritual, and I felt chicken skin all over my body. I just felt this tremendous energy come over me. All the hair on my body stood on end. And I look up, and there's suddenly a cloud in the sky, and there hadn't been a cloud anywhere in the sky, but there was this big cloud right in front of me. And I blinked, and then it wasn't a big cloud anymore. It was like this 150-foot tall, looked like a hovering statue of Parvati, sitting cross-legged and with multiple arms, standing there in front of me, and hovering in the air. And it was an amazing experience. I mean, I realized that I was having a vision. This is not something that's typical for me to see things like that with my eyes full-blown in front of me, but obviously there's something to being in the right place at the right time, and we were there during this festival, and this was the time for the goddess to bring her blessings to the world, I'm sure. So Parvati was there. I accept her blessings. She eventually turns back into a cloud and kind of dissipates. I walk back around on the beach there behind these 2 gentlemen from Indonesia who were part of our group. We're sitting on like an erosion ledge where from the last high tide, where the ocean had taken away a bit of the beach, and there was the same. I was down on that lower level before when I was out there with the waves, and they were sitting on this little 4-foot ledge. And I was walking up behind one of them, and I look back, and all of a sudden, there she is again. The goddess reaches up a hand of water over one of these guys' heads and douses him from head to toe. The other guy doesn't get a drop of water on him. And at that moment, because I had just been down below on the lower ledge, the waves were fizzling out, where the foam was ending about 25 feet in front of that, even at its height. It was not coming anywhere near this. It was not like the water could even have possibly gotten up onto that ledge. And yet the goddess reaches up, douses this one guy from head to toe. He jumps up as I'm walking around behind, and I remember I said to him as he was like, he had water all over him. He was just, sputtering for a second, and I said, "Looks like the goddess just gave you a big wet kiss," and because I had seen the whole thing. And one of the most, another interesting blessing I received from that experience was that I ended up with that gentleman who got splashed by the goddess. Ended up in a car with him where we were supposed to go to some special temple. The two of us just were the ones that had to go to this certain temple, and our car broke down, and we ended up stuck in this little town square watching the cows and the cars all milling about in India. And I wanted to ask him, and I did. I said, you remember when you got when that wave hit you when we were at the beach? Were you thinking anything? What were you thinking just before that happened? Were you? And he looks at me really strange, and he's like, "It's so funny that you should ask that, because I had just closed my eyes and I was praying, Goddess, if you're here, touch me." I mean, for me, that was so meaningful in that I've led my life as, I've had all sorts of mystical experiences in my life, all sorts of subjective experiences, but there's no way to prove them, of course, and almost never do you have them confirmed by somebody else's subjective experience. So in this case, I had seen the hand splashing him. He asked for the goddess to touch him, and there you have the two come together, two subjective spiritual experiences that match up. And I feel that's another great blessing to have had that, for the divine to not only bless you, but also to show you that it was more than just your subjective experience. It's more than just in your head, So the next thing that happened, as far as the next miracle of the goddess when I was in India, and I do place these back on my finally asking Babaji for his blessings and his help. We're during the 9 nights, during the 9 nights of the goddess. We were now during some of the nights for Durga, and we were at a Durga temple. And Durga is a fiercely protective form of the goddess. She's usually seen sitting on a lion, beautiful woman on a lion with all sorts of daggers in her multiple arms. And she's a fiercely protective form of the goddess. And so we were at this Durga temple, and they were performing a fire ceremony. And so the priests were all making offerings into the flame, throwing the ghee on the flame, and they were all chanting, saying their special prayers that they know, and they were clanging cymbals and making all sorts of noise as a part of their ritual. And we were told to chant this mantra, and I think we were all chanting. We were chanting Om Dum Durgaye Namaha, Om Dum Durgaye Namaha, which is it's like a chant of a mantra for Durga. And so we're all chanting. The priests are doing their ceremony, the cymbals are clanging, and I'm starting to feel the kundalini starting to rock up my spine and spiraling up my spine and out the top of my head, and I can feel myself as I'm sitting there, the energy just coursing through me. And we're chanting, and Om Dum Durgaye, and then the priests are clanging the cymbals, and ching, ching, and Om Dum Durgaye, and I'm looking up at the magnificent bronze statue of Durga, and standing over the whole ceremony, and they're clanging and Om Dum Durgaye, Om Dum Durgaye, and the energy just keeps pulsing up my spine. I look at the goddess Om Dum Durgaye, and she just leaps right out of the statue. To say I was dumbfounded would not even be anywhere close. The goddess leaps out of the statue. She doesn't really look like the statue when she came out. When she came out, she was 9 feet tall, it looked like, golden, slender. The statue looks really chunky. So she was 9 feet tall and slender and had 6 arms and had swords and daggers, and she's dancing around the temple. And I realized at that point, I kind of tried to get a little bit of hold of myself. I'm like, Blake, nobody else can see her, so she's dancing for you. And so I gave her my full attention. I gave her my love, and because I acknowledged that she had come out for me, and I gave her my love, and I asked her to get into my heart. And she came dancing around the temple and danced around, and she came around and went right through a woman who was sitting right in front of me and just merged right into my body, right into my heart.